speed is the common denominator.
So this is where I wanted to get to, because we've bought in. Like, it's not we know speed, but we've got, our audience is more endurance athletes, right? We've got people from the mile marathon. I had an athlete run a 100-mile race a couple weeks ago. So like,
cool.
Are they gonna? They don't quite buy it as much. So tell us why this is valuable and important. Prove it. Convince those endurance athletes that this is super, super important. We believe it. We know why.
Yep.
Tell the audience.
I get it. So here here's another thing. I'm not gonna even apologize for the snark. So it's funny. Like I said, everybody knows about speed, right? You know, so their hand timing or whatever. But would you ever go into a weight room and then grab some weights and you're not really sure, is it really 5 pounds? Is it 5.5? You know what I mean? Would you ever like slap some weights on and start lifting with it? You might, but would you feel, how comfortable would you feel? But if you go into a weight room, everything's clearly marked.
Yep.
The metrics, you know, the units, it's there, right? Yep. There's no question, right? Okay. But when it comes to speed, we're going hand time, or man, she's fast. Is she? You know, where's the data? So we're still in the weight room, right? So Spencer, let's say you could lift 500 pounds. You can bench 500 pounds, no problem, right?
Easy.
All right, easy, right? Easy, right? Yeah, you're crushing it, right? So you know, so I come in the weight room one day, and you're like, "Hey, Moo, let's have a little contest, right? My best is, let's say, 400, or I'll say even 300, right?" And you're like, "Look, you know, NFLers, they're great athletes, right? Let's see how many times we can lift 250." Now we already know my max is only 50 pounds away from what we're going to lift repeatedly.
Yeah. And
it's half yours. Look at you smiling like, man, you're crushed before you even lift that weight. You already know. You're like, yeah, I'm getting my acceptance speech together, because it's no contest. Now, why is it that that's no contest?
There's more variables at play.
Yes, there are always, yeah, pardon me for nerding out. No, there are.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
So, and again, and this is going to be, I'm going to extrapolate to running a little bit here too, but like,
please.
If we're bringing,
it's a running show.
We're bringing, we're bringing the barrier down. So you would assume that if you have a higher ceiling, you can sustain that ceiling for a longer period of time. And that's where, in my world, like, we have to increase. If we're working with high school athletes, like, guess what? Even if you're going to run 3,200, I got to increase your 400 meter speed, or decrease 400 meter speed.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Because you got to be able to sustain that for a long period of time. So in this analogy,
that sounds like repeat spin.
I should be able to wipe the floor with you, because my ceiling is so much higher.
Absolutely.
Than yours. So
we call that speed reserve. In the weight room, you'd call that strength reserve.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You're working at 50% capacity.
Right.
At 250, you're like, yeah, I could do this all day.
Right.
Right? Me, I don't know, I'm closer to 100% capacity, so I'm working harder to get the same result. That's why speed is important. As a matter of fact, so I've been keeping biometric data on athletes for quite some time. So, pardon me as I go into my phone here. I gotta find. So, I have data, if I can find it, on Mr. Breitbach.
Nice.
So, my man,
Speed David over here.
Yep. So this is what we did. So, this was in 2014, 7 years ago. 7 years ago. So, and it was at the end of his workout. So we don't, so I'm going to give a little bit of context to this. But, so he was finished up his workout, and I'm like, hey, look, I got this timing system, free lap. Can I get some data? And he was, kind enough to allow me to do this to him. So, I actually had units at 10-meter intervals, so I was getting splits, right? So I'm gonna frame it this way. So again, accelerate, top end speed, deceleration, right? 0 to 10 is that acceleration phase. Really, 10 to 30 is your pre-max velocity stage, and then 30 to 40 is your top end speed, and then you decelerate. Right, which is why most sprint coaches, you know, they time 40s, but they capture the last 10 meters because top end speed. Right, you know, right. And so anyway, so what we're gonna look at the total speed. Actually, yeah. So the total speed, his best time was 6.16 seconds, right? Again, you were at the end of a workout. I think if I would have caught you fresh, who knows what the data was. But, so I'm just going to throw that out there. But here's the big thing. So if we look at the last 10 meters, that 30 to 40 range. All right, the first one, 1.19. So I'm going to say this too. For a guy, anything under a second, you're blazing, okay? But when you're, you know, so 1.30, or we're talking about 0.2 of a second, you know, that's important too. So I would say, you know, 1.20 and, you know, to 1.0 is still significant, right? So 1.19, so you were sub 1.20 for the first one, which is great. The second one was 1.29, 1.26. I should say that I gave him 60 seconds in between. So, you know, there's different speed dimensions, the distance, recovery time, which definitely impacts repeat sprint ability. We'll get back to that. So 60-second recovery, 1.26, 1.30, but the last one out of the 5, you know, was 1.33. So they were all in a nice cluster. And again, this is the end of a workout that you did that, which is remarkable. So I gave them 5 minutes. Oh no, I actually gave you 10 minutes of the recovery. That was nice. Yeah.
It's good living right
Yeah,
now.
don't let my clients hear, my current clients, they'd be like, 10 minutes.
Censor that out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I give them about 4 seconds, or 4 minutes now, 4 seconds. Probably feels like 4 seconds. But the second set, but here's the cool thing. This is weird. So the first one, 1.24. It's still under 1.30. So it's solid, right? And we're talking about a guy at that time, 7 years ago, you were probably running 5 to 10Ks, right?
Yeah.
Spit out some of your PRs and times you're running around
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah,
so
around that time. So I ran 4:19 indoors. I ran 8:30 indoors and was in about 14 mid shape, like 14:35 shape for 5K.
Absolutely.
So I was pretty darn fit on the endurance side of things.
Right.
But it was definitely a longer distance side of things for sure.
Absolutely.
Right?
But again, you had some speed.
Yeah.
You had speed is speed. I don't care. You know, like speed is speed. It is what it is. If you got a V12 engine, sorry, you beating a V6. That 4-cylinder is back to the garage. Like yeah. So anyway, 1.24, 1.28, 1.30, 1.28. So not as good. Like we could look at the average. But again, you were in that 1.30 range. So you had what I value deeply, repeat sprint ability. The ability to perform at a certain level, you know, repeatedly. Oh my gosh.
Joshua Cheptegei.
Cheptegei.
Record holder.
Yeah.
5K and 10K. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, you know, let's, and then I'm gonna go back. You're like, man, this guy, it's like herding squirrels.
We love the data though. Like, yeah. That's,
well, you know what? You improve what you measure, and for me and my clients, we use the data to drive performance. Check the guy. Oh, here we go. So, lap splits for his record-breaking 5K. I think the worst one was 60.91. So all of them were under 62 seconds. No breaks, no 30-second recoveries, no 10-minute recoveries. So you need to be fast, and you need to be repeatably fast.
Right.
So that's why. You know what? Maybe you can't bench 500 pounds, you know, but from a sprinting, from a running standpoint, you definitely need to have a level of speed. That would be what I would say. Jump in, guys, real quick as I grab another piece of data. So I have I'm going to share out some data from a young man from the area, some prairie athlete. Now this young man qualified for state in the long jump and the 100 this year. So I have some similar data. Now I will say 90-second recoveries, 5-minute recovery. So a little bit different, but let's look at the data. And I only did 5. But we'll just look. The fastest time he ran was a 5.64. So a little bit, you were in that 6 range, but he's a sprinter. So, you know what I mean? That should make sense.
Yeah.
But listen, we're gonna compare apples to apples now. That 30 to 40 meter split, right?
Yeah.
So check it out. First one, 1.26. Okay, you were in that's your neighborhood,
yeah.
right? 1.30, 1.19. That was where you were, right? Last two, 1.13 and 1.11. Now that was last year. He actually ran 1.05 this summer, but still, they're comparable.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I can speak for him. I don't think he ever wants to run a 5K or a 10K. But again, there's an intersection as far as max velo speed. So you got a 10K, 5K guy running really fast max velo times, and then you got a sprinter running fast max velo times too. So speed matters. And last time I checked, the equation for speed hasn't changed, does it? Does it change for distance runners?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty similar.
Distance
right
over
around
time?
the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So speed matters. Go ahead.
Yeah.